Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today, we've got a comparison video between two of probably the best value for money fragrances you can buy, period. And, I catch a lot of flack from other people in the community, and I'm starting to see that this is a very small group of people. Everyone kind of knows everybody. So I've caught some flack over the years, haven't been doing this for a year, over the months of me making these videos, because, I'm big on distributors. That's one of my things. I like to nail down a certain time frame, a certain era, a certain distributor, because I believe that reformulations have gutted the fragrance world, the fragrances that I love, that I've learned to love over the years. And so I like to kind of nail down a distributor, and I like to share that knowledge with you guys, and I catch flack for it. This is a fragrance comparison we're going to do today between the Eau de Toilette on my left hand and the Eau de Parfum on my right hand that you do not have to worry about. Distributors, reformulations, the current version that's being marketed by Inter Parfums is absolutely stunning for a modern interpretation. And the fragrance we're talking about is Boucheron Jaïpur pour Homme. Now, you can see Jaïpur Homme. I think it's maybe just Jaïpur Homme, not Jaïpur pour Homme, just Jaïpur Homme. And Jaipur is a city in India, and you can see the architecture, the design of the bottle is absolutely beautiful. You know how there's a little bit of the Taj Mahal in the designs from the old Shalimar story, the old love story? This has a little bit of that, architectural beauty, the architecture of the area. If you look up Jaipur, it's a beautiful take and a beautiful interpretation. You'll see these buildings with this temple, look. I absolutely love the presentation for a budget fragrance, and this is a $20 to $30 fragrance at discounters. And this bottle of the Eau de Parfum actually is the modern Inter Parfums interpretation. And this bottle of the Eau de Toilette is actually one of the older bottles. You can see it's a tester, so I don't have a cap, but you can see the notes on the back there. I'll read you the notes in just a second. But the new Eau de Toilettes, what they've done to distinguish the two, you can see how both of these have this frosted glass around it. In the new Eau de Toilettes, there is no frosted glass around the middle. It's literally just see-through like this all the way through. So if you see the new bottles, what you'll notice is that the Eau de Toilettes have no frosted glass, and the Eau de Parfums have the frosted glass. That's how they distinguish between the two now. But this is actually a vintage Boucheron Corp bottle. You can see right there. And so that's why it's a little different from the modern formulation, but I've smelled I have the modern formulation of the Eau de Parfum, and it's absolutely stunning. You don't have to go hunt down a bottle of this. And I plan on making a video soon about modern fragrances from the past that the modern version is still good, still worth getting. And that's a video idea that I've been kind of playing with for a while. I'm just trying to figure out which fragrances I want to include in that. But before we get into this, I want to talk a little bit about the perfumer, Anik Monardo. She is a perfumer who I really respect. I've come to really love her work. Like I said, I think this is one of the best. It's amazing that you can buy a fragrance of this quality for 20 or 30 bucks. It just boggles the mind, and then you look at stuff like Creed Viking Cologne for $500 and you're just like, what is happening here? So it's stuff like this teaches you as you get into your journey that higher price does not always equal better quality. You'll learn that as you really start to sniff stuff. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started getting into fragrances, is I bought into the whole higher price must mean higher quality. It must mean better. And that's not true at all. There's some cheap fragrances floating around. This is a perfect example that are just absolutely stunning. But I want to talk about Anik Monardo. She's done some work. I did an entire perfumer's portfolio video on her. So you can go check that out if you want. But people like to see bottles. So I figured, I'd talk a little bit about the Anik Monardo fragrances. She has a DNA. She absolutely has a DNA. Her and Nathalie Larson kind of remind me of each other a little bit. Their styles are different. The DNA that they have is different. But they both create some of the most amazing fragrances on a budget that you could imagine. For example, Nathalie Larson created Encre Noire, which is one of my favorite vetiver lines ever. And you can include the high-priced Roja vetivers that I own and stuff like that. Encre Noire gives me just as much joy, if not even more joy, wearing than some of the big money vetiver fragrances that I own. So Nathalie Larson and Anik Monardo, I kind of put in this pile of perfumers that just create amazing fragrances with the briefs that they're given, but they stay true to themselves. They stay true to the DNA of who they are and what they like to create. And for Anik Monardo, I've shown some of these off before, but Body Koros is one she did that I absolutely love. There's a eucalyptus note in here that's very rare. You don't see eucalyptus used very often in perfumery. Creed's Royal Mayfair has a eucalyptus note that I love, but Body Koros has a eucalyptus note, and that's one that I think they changed it now. This is the old style bottle. The new style bottle looks like it looks like a current Koros bottle with the built-in sprayer. It doesn't look like this anymore with its own cap. And Chris from Scentland said that there are some slight differences, but the new version is still worth getting. So this is another one that could be in that, older fragrances that the modern formulation is still good video. And then there's a discontinued fragrance that she did with a beautiful note of anise that I absolutely love called Lolita Lempicka Au Masculin. I love this fragrance. Oh, it's so good. And there's also an intense version with oud and iris amped up that I absolutely love as well. No one talks about the intense version. That's a beautiful iris take as well, but I didn't grab that one, but it is here somewhere. Here, I think it's right here. Let me grab it. I'll show you. Because I think Anik Monardo is the perfumer as well. So this is called Au Masculin Eau de Parfum Intense. And it's in this black bottle. And there's a gorgeous iris note. Absolutely stunning. Iris and oud with that Lolita Lempicka DNA. And then, of course, she did this, which Potion is probably one of the closest, DNA-wise. All of these have her DNA. But these two, you can tell, they really share. She kind of mixed and matched different ingredients in different places, but it feels like the formula to what she was trying to create. They're in the same family, let's say. They're cousins. They're kissing cousins. And so D Squared Potion is one I absolutely love. There's an Eau de Toilette and an Eau de Parfum. This is the Eau de Toilette, but I hear the Eau de Parfum is very close. Just like what we're going to learn about today, the Eau de Toilette and Eau de Parfum of these two fragrances are close to each other, but there are differences. So that's why I wanted to do this comparison video. And then she also made Bulgari Black, which is the hockey puck, the rubber hockey puck. Smells a little bit like Midnight in Paris with this leathery, rubbery note to it. Absolutely gorgeous. If you're a patchouli lover, she made Cocorico, which is a take on, if you like fragrances like L'Instant de Guerlain, Eau Extreme, this is a beautiful patchouli that will remind you of that, but there's some fresh fig touches in the top of Cocorico. This is also discontinued. Don't pay big money for this unless you're really a patchouli lover. You can just go get the current version of L'Instant de Guerlain and probably be just as well off. And then I think another discontinued fragrance is Xerius Rouge, which is a flanker of Xerius from the mid-'80s. And Xerius Rouge is such an interesting perfume because it's clearly a 90s baby. It has that freshness that 90s fragrances had, but there is this insane cactus note that pops up in this. Cactus, and then there's another weird note that's in here as well. I can't quite remember. But Xerius Rouge, if you want to smell something unique for summer, fresh, something that no one's wearing in 2022, check out Xerius Rouge. So Anik Monardo has some amazing creations. And then if you watched my video, if you've been following my channel, this is what prompted this video today, is I bought a decant of Bois d'Argent by Dior. This is a 2018 bottle. And you can see right there, I got it from Fragnanimous. Check out his website. He's amazing. Lee from Fragnanimous is a guy who I trust, I can recommend. I know he'll be honest with you. I know he'll do you right. And I did say something in the video yesterday that was incorrect. I said someone bought this and returned it, and Lee told me he doesn't sell stuff that people buy in return because he doesn't know if they messed with it. This is one that just never sold. And so I got a great deal on this decant. And so Bois d'Argent is what kind of prompted this video, because this is another Anik Monardo creation with iris, and you know, it's got her signature DNA. I might do a full wear on that tomorrow. So I've been wanting to do this comparison video for a long time because, you know, people want to know, I get questions from time to time, which one's better, the EDT, the Eau de Toilette, or the Eau de Parfum. So first of all, I should mention that you can definitely tell they're both Jaïpur. It's not like one is completely different DNA. They both have that Jaïpur Homme DNA, but basically the differences are, if you are somebody who wants your fragrance to be a little bit more citrusy, a little bit more versatile, let's say. So the Eau de Toilette is what's on my left hand, and I've got a 6-hour dry down right now on my left hand, and the note tree looks like this: bergamot, heliotrope. And the heliotrope note is actually so beautiful in this fragrance. It's even more beautiful in the Eau de Parfum. Cardamom, so you get some spices that you would expect from something that's named Jaipur. I mean, you would expect spices from India, stuff like that. You think about those beautiful spice sellers on the street with all of the different colored spices, and it's all bright and vibrant colors, that the spices they're selling. And there is a little bit of that in this fragrance. There could be more, but there is enough of it where it at least stays true to its name, because there's cardamom, nutmeg, and cinnamon. So there's the holy trinity of spices. And then there's lime and lemon in the top, amber, jasmine, carnation, nutmeg, rose, vanilla, and cinnamon in the heart. And then a base of benzoin, which is one of her specialties. Anik Monardo does benzoin. She does this benzoin Tonka thing that's just gorgeous, enveloping, if you will, with clove, patchouli, and cedarwood. And so the notes on the bottle say bergamot, heliotrope, wood, which Parfumo says that wood is cedar wood. And you do get this cedar-like dry down, so that does make sense. Nutmeg, cinnamon, clove, and amber. That's the actual notes on the tester. The EDP, which is also a tester, says a sensual and modern spicy oriental fragrance. A fresh opening, followed by a spicy accord, softened by an intense and woody signature. So instantly when you first spray, the differences are apparent because the Eau de Toilette is more citrusy. And the biggest thing is the citruses are turned up, and they tend to last. Somehow, these aren't citruses that you spray and bam, they're gone in 3 or 4 minutes. No, these citruses really drag on. So it's almost like if you spray these at the same time, so if you spray the Eau de Toilette on your left hand like I did, and the Eau de Parfum on your right hand, and you start to smell the differences, you will realize that the fragrances, as they dry down, get closer and closer to each other in the base, but it's almost like she has stopped the clock on the eau de toilette. So whereas it's like the clock starts instantly on the eau de parfum, and it starts going into things like the heliotrope. You get this Play-Doh-y, like, this Play-Doh, almondy heliotrope feel, very powdery. The eau de parfum is very powdery, almost from the get-go. If you're somebody who doesn't like the powderiness of something like Abbey Rouge, right, or something along those lines, maybe you should stay away from the eau de parfum. Maybe you should go more towards the eau de toilette, because what the eau de toilette does is it highlights the citruses, and it highlights almost like the fresher elements, right? So you could almost say spring, summer, fall, winter. Like if this was your signature scent and you wanted to wear Jaïpur Homme all the time, I would tell you to get both the eau de toilette and the eau de parfum. They're so cheap. Even this vintage bottle that I got, I only got this within the last year or year and a half, I would say. And I didn't pay very much for the vintage. People aren't going kicking the door down for Jaïpur Homme, which is surprising because it's such an amazing fragrance. If you followed your nose and you blindfolded yourself and you didn't know that this was a $20 or $30 fragrance, because Bois d'Argent is a Dior Privé, they'll pay hundreds for Bois d'Argent. But you can get vintage bottles of Jaïpur Homme for $25, $35. I mean, people, they may know it's vintage, but they're like, no one wants it. So there you go. So think about this. Think about as the fragrances converge, as the hours tick by, they get closer and closer. But the eau de toilette, the clock stops. You spray it and the clock stops. You just get beautiful citruses while the time on the eau de parfum is going along. Time is moving along on the eau de parfum normally, but the clock is stopped on the eau de toilette. You're not getting that powdery, heliotrope, ambery, almondy feel. You're not getting that heavier Anik Monardo base materials. It's not as thick and rich, right? It's more citrusy, it's lighter. Maybe it's even a little bit more masculine, the eau de toilette. And the clock is stopped. But at about 30 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes, maybe even 40 minutes, all of a sudden, you warp ahead. So you just cut out that 30 to 40 minutes of the fragrance in the opening, and you warp ahead. And while the fragrances are still different 30 or 45 minutes in the future, because the citruses are just drawn out for so long, it's like the citruses take up 30, 40 minutes of the opening. So you're experiencing the heavier aspects, the rose of Jaïpur, the vanilla, but it's in the background. The citruses are playing center role for the first 30 or 45 minutes, and then you warp speed ahead. And they're still different. The lines haven't converged yet, but now the 30-minute stop clock that stopped on the EDT while the EDP is just moving along, you warp ahead. And so they're still different, but they're closer. And now they get closer and closer together as the hours tick by. So that brings me to my next point, and that is wearability. So I've had some friends who I trust in the fragrance community. Like, for example, someone like, if you know Ben from That Cologne Guy. Shout out to you, Ben. And Ben from That Cologne Guy says that the powderiness of the eau de parfum was just a little bit too much for him. It was maybe even a little more on the feminine side, whereas the eau de toilette leans more traditionally masculine, and it's more wearable in more situations. I love them both, but I completely agree what he's saying there, because the eau de toilette is much more versatile, especially for someone like me in Texas, where 9 months out of the year it's hot. I could wear the eau de toilette. It's going to be 97 degrees today. And I think the eau de toilette would be a beautiful fragrance. If you wanted an oriental fragrance, right, because Anik Monardo almost like specializes in oriental perfumes. If you wanted an oriental fragrance that you could wear in the heat, Eau de Toilette Jaïpur Homme would maybe be my first choice even. It's amazing. And it is amazing you can get a value for money. The value for money fragrance is through the roof on this. I mean, you get so much more than what you paid for. The cinnamon, the spices, the nutmeg, there is a little bit of that tonka. By the way, I told you that Russian Adam, Arise Ladore, sent me some actual ingredients. I did an entire video on that. If you haven't watched that yet, go check that out. But a week ago, I dipped this in a tonka, the ingredient itself. Not refined, not mixed with perfumers, alcohol, just tonka. And I've been smelling this for a week straight, literally a week, and it still smells amazing. That a week later, that almondy, it has some, you know, maybe like some cacao touches, some tiny touches of cacao, but it's you can tell it's tonka kind of thing. And it still smells amazing after a week of sitting on this. Whereas I sprayed new Davidoff leather blend that I got, and it lasted for a couple days, 3 days on the blotter, and then it's gone. But the actual ingredient tonka has lasted on this blotter forever, and you get some of that tonka feel in the base of Jaïpur Homme, but it's more turned up in the eau de parfum. You get more powderiness, more vanilla, more tonka. If you're someone that likes your fragrances maybe even a little bit sweeter, I would say you could go for the eau de parfum. And if you're somebody that doesn't like your fragrances as sweet, you don't want to get as much aspect of the benzoin, vanilla, tonka, which is what, you know, the heavier base materials, if you will. Then you could go for the eau de toilette, because the eau de toilette doesn't have as much of the emphasis on the tonka, the vanilla, the benzoin. You get more of the citruses, spices, a little bit of the floral aspect. But then you get some of the clove, the patchouli. It's just a beautiful composition. And if this was in any other bottle, I mean, you know, if it wasn't a Boucheron fragrance, I truly believe that this could have been selling for hundreds, just like Bois d'Argent. Just like Bois d'Argent. People would be paying hundreds for this if that's what it was priced at. They just would. Because it's that good of a fragrance. It fits that mold. But because Boucheron is seen as like a budget fragrance house nowadays, you can find this kind of stuff for 20, 30 bucks. It's an amazing deal. If you are someone who, like me, who wrongly, like me, initially when I started my journey, thought I gotta have the Creeds because they're the most expensive, which means they're the best. Trust me, get your nose on Jaïpur and tell me if I'm wrong. This is a fantastic composition. There are differences, and you could say this is Eau de Toilette's more spring, summer. Eau de Parfum's more fall, winter. That's what you would expect in a Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum comparison. Now, to be fair, the Eau de Toilette that I am comparing is the vintage Boucheron perfume, Boucheron Corp. So I haven't smelled the Inter Parfums Eau de Toilette version, but Inter Parfums does such a good job with reformulations that I wouldn't question them. I wouldn't expect them to do a bad reformulation, especially on a fragrance like Jaïpur Homme that's an Oriental. It doesn't have oak moss that's restricted. I don't think it has liliol or lirol that needs to be restricted. There's no lily of the valley note in here. So I would expect them to be able to keep this at top-notch form. And Inter Parfums does amazing reformulations to my nose. So, you know, that's kind of my initial take. There's nothing groundbreaking about what I'm saying. Eau de Toilette, fresher, citrusier, maybe even a little bit easier to wear because the heavier base materials are turned down in the citruses, and That makes it maybe a little bit more traditionally masculine. And the eau de parfum, the base materials are turned up. You get more of that heliotrope. If you're a heliotrope lover, by the way, and you're looking for a heliotrope fragrance to add, a fragrance with a beautiful heliotrope note, let's say, to add to your collection, and you don't have Jaïpur Homme eau de parfum, I would highly encourage you to check this one out. It really is beautiful, especially for a $20 or $30 fragrance. And so again, the base materials are amped up. The benzoin, the tonka, the vanilla are amped up in the eau de parfum, which makes it more powdery, more resinous. This is probably truer, honestly. The eau de parfum is probably truer to Anik Monardo's preferred DNA. And I think this actually came out first. The eau de parfum, I think, came out first. And then I think maybe 6 months later or something in the same year in 1998, the eau de toilette came out. And so I think that's the way it was done, which makes sense because this is what I would expect from an Anik Monardo fragrance. You get that warmth that just envelops you. She has a DNA. She has a signature. And you can definitely smell it as you smell more and more of her fragrances. There's one other fragrance, by the way, I ran across that really reminds me of Jaïpur, heavily reminds me of Jaïpur. Maybe more so the eau de toilette. But if I'm talking about this and you're shaking your head and going, yes, I absolutely love Jaïpur Homme. It's highly underrated. It's one of my favorite fragrances. I would recommend you check this out if you can find it. This is a fragrance called If for Men by Sorella Fontana. And Sorella Fontana is a brand that, this is the only perfume that I own from them, but it comes in this beautiful book like this. And there's actually a poem. I read this poem once, but it's a Rudyard Kipling poem. And long story short is this fragrance right here, it sits like this in the book, kind of like, oh, there's another niche house that does this book thing, but I can't remember what it is. They do fragrances like Egypt and Bob and, oh, I can't remember. And either way, this is the bottle. And I did a early impression on this fragrance. I wore it, oh, I can't remember when, maybe a month or two ago. And this almost feels like an Italian style Jaïpur Homme. It's closest to the eau de toilette because that Italian style brings in kind of more citruses, stuff like that. But it's very close. And I think this came out first, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm sure that Anik Monardo was not thinking of this fragrance when she created Jaïpur Homme, but if you love Jaïpur and the eau de toilette is your favorite, if you're one of the apparently minority, because most people prefer the eau de parfum, I'm torn. I used to think I preferred the eau de parfum, but now that I'm wearing the eau de toilette more, I don't know. Now I'm kind of split down the middle. Maybe it's more like, you know, weather specific or event specific or whatever it may be. So, but the eau de toilette has really, really grown on me. But if you like those kind of fragrances, check out If by Sorella, I guess it's Sorella Fontana. And I don't know if this house is still in business. This is made in Milan, made in Italy. And let's see, can you see that? That red writing makes it tough. Either way, I just wanted to mention this because they are so close. They are in the same sandbox, if you will. So that's my comparison video. I always feel, you know, a little hesitant to do these comparisons. We haven't done one in a while because I'm always thinking, God, what if I put these on and I do one here and I can't tell any differences? But the differences are really clear when you wear it side by side. You can really see the heavier base notes in the eau de parfum, and you can see the lighter citruses, a little bit more airy, a little bit more versatile in the eau de toilette, but they're both fantastic perfumes, and I would actually recommend just getting them both because value for money is through the roof for what you're getting. And if they ever discontinue this, I could totally see, you know, prices going up, even though there's a lot of these floating around. So maybe they won't go up big time, but and even the bottle is a work of art. Where can you get a $20 bottle nowadays like this with this kind of detailing? Boucheron is a jewelry house, and this bottle is definitely worthy. The cap is a little bit cheap. I mean, it feels like cheap plastic, but it looks beautiful. So anyways, that's kind of my take. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate the feedback. If you have experience with Jaïpur, Homme, let me know. If you have experience with Anik Monardo's perfumes, let me know. I'll probably do Boîte Argentée tomorrow and just give an early impression on it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate the feedback. Appreciate the likes, the comments, the support. A subscription always helps. It helps with my exposure with the YouTube algorithm. Because like I said before, I want like-minded people who love perfume, you know, to find me. I want them to, I want to be visible to them. I don't want to be shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Cheers, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.